There we go. I should record. Okay. All right, it is time. The time has come. Hello, everybody. My name is Apollonaut, and I am the creator of the D&D Compendium Resources website, and I'm here to show you all the VTT that I use to run my games. The virtual tabletop, this is called Tableplop. It's a pretty kind of underground indie tool. I have found that I really liked it. I really like running my games on it. It's intuitive, easy to use, and I got my players started with it very, very, very quickly. Even from having them be at a place of zero VTT knowledge beforehand. When the pandemic started, I was looking to find a virtual tabletop that I could use that wasn't Roll20, because I didn't like Roll20. I didn't like its interface. It was kind of dated and slow and didn't run well. And I actually stumbled across, here, I'll open up my website here. There is a in-depth comparison of a bunch of VTTs by Cyanomus. If it'll open. Yes, here we go. So this document has a bunch of information about the existing virtual tabletops. You might have heard of you might have heard of Roll20 or Astral or Fantasy Grounds or Tailspire. Those are all addressed on here. And I had never heard of Tableplop before, but seeing it mentioned as the first VTT on the entire document, I figured it was worth a look. This workshop is designed for DMs or people who are considering running games online and are not satisfied with the tools that exist for them, or you just want to see what there is out there and what Tableplop is. So we have all of these other VTTs. So this link can be found. I'll just drop it in the chat, in the special events chat. If you wanted to see a pro and con comparison of all of the VTTs that are out there at the moment, there's a lot of detail in that guide. I also have this page on my website that has some details and the Discord servers for all of these popular VTTs. So Fantasy Grounds, Foundry, Astral, Tableplop, Tailspire, Tabletop Simulator, Let's Roll, and there's a whole bunch of other ones. Okay. So you're a DM, or you're an aspiring DM, and you want to run your game online. Okay. Well, now you have to figure out a tool that you want to use to run your games, and either you have one or you've been recommended one. Usually it's Roll20. That's the industry giant. People will recommend Foundry. Foundry costs $50 for the DM. For all the players, it's free, but you have to host it on your computer, and people have to connect to your computer as a server. And so some people don't like that model. They don't have money to pay for that, even if it is higher quality, and there are many, many more features and plugins and stuff like that. I just needed something that would allow me to get my players moving tokens around on a screen, and that they could roll all of their ability checks, and they could roll attacks, and all of that easily enough that we could get started within about an hour. And that's what Tableplop was for me. This is a tool that I found that allows you to get set up very quickly on making scenes for your players to join in on. It has a very simple process of creating a campaign and inviting your players to it. Making characters is pretty easy. And I got so into it, actually, that I went and found an online repository of as much of the D&D monster content as I could find. Of course, legally, the only monster content or D&D information you can find online that is out there for free is the system reference documentation stuff. So I have all of the monsters, all of the data from all of those monsters has been converted into characters or files that you can import into this VTT. I made a whole Python script to convert all of those monsters into character sheets for this Tableplop. VTT, and I can just literally import a monster as a token and use it, and it'll have all of its actions and ability scores and everything like that on it already, which is really nice. I can just import it. I can also link that in the chat once I get to the part where we start setting up a scene. So first, if you go to the Tableplop website, it is tableplop.com. I'll throw it in the chat. We have you can make a campaign. I have a couple of campaigns here. I set up one for today, and this is what you see. You see this page that has a scene, and it has an invite link. I've disabled invites at the moment. Otherwise, you would be able to see this on stream and then join me, and I would have a bunch of people in my campaign. We may actually do an interactive thing later on where I invite some of you in and you can play around with it as characters or as players under a game master. But you're welcome to make your own. It's free. So I can name it. I'll say this is the introduction workshop campaign. And this is going to be showing off what Tableplop can do. Okay. So the first thing you'll see here is the scene. If you wanted to go and edit the scene and add maps and images and stuff like that, you could immediately go in. We have the member manager system. We also have characters. And so what we'll see here, I'm actually going to delete these characters here. So you'll start with nothing. And when you invite players, they're able to make their own characters for themselves. But you can also just go new character, and you can choose if you want the default 5th edition D&D character sheet, or if you want a super minimal one that just has the stats, or for NPCs, for example. You can even set up your own custom character sheets or completely blank and build the entire sheet yourself. There are some people in the Tableplop Discord that have made some really impressive templates for other RPGs, for example, Star Wars or Pathfinder. So those are available through their Discord server. They're kind of pinned in a templates channel. But right now we are playing 5th edition D&D, and so I'm going to select the 5.0 SRD standard D&D character sheet. And what we see here is some pretty standard information. We can edit the values. We can change our hit points. We have an initiative value that dynamically calculates. So if I have, actually, I don't know if it does for sure. Yeah. So you might have some more modifiers to initiative. Say you have the alert feat and it adds +5 to initiative. Some of these values are connected by formulas to other pieces on the sheet. This one by default initiative, I don't believe is, even if it already has the dexterity value, you're supposed to calculate dexterity into initiative. There isn't enough automation yet to include feats and items and class features that would give you extra values on some of these. You could eventually do that if you figured out how to do some of the programming. And there are people who can help you with the programming on the Discord for Tableplop. But for now, let's keep it simple. We'll just throw in the values that we have from our character sheet. Maybe you have a 16 AC and a speed of 30 feet. And we'll say we are a ranger and we are a wood elf. Level 1. And we can add appearances. We can add tokens. It's as simple as just clicking the plus and then adding an image. You can add a file here. I'll just select a token from somewhere I have. Let's see, PCs. We'll do, let's see, this. There we go. Maybe I should change that. This is Lizard Folk. Lizard Folk Ranger. All right. So now we have an appearance. You can use any kind of token maker you want and just import those. I use Token Stamp. Token Stamp. I will link it in the chat. There we go. You can just add an image into the web page and then add a border, download the token, and then you can use that really quickly. All right. So now we have, so Ranger, we know Ranger has let's see, which it's wisdom saving throws and strength, right? Let me check. Classes, Ranger. Ranger has proficiency with strength and dex. Okay, and then we can pick some skills. So we have to choose one. I'll say animal handling is easy enough. Proficient, so we have proficient and expert. Proficiency, expertise. It will calculate proficiency dynamically, so if you change your level, say we're like level 8, it will change it should change your proficiency, yeah. So now it's 3, and that will affect your formulas for your skill bonuses here. It has your passive perception, your passive stealth. You could put in a value for dark vision if you wanted to. So pretty easy overall to build a character and pick some skills. And this is really the basics of all that you need to get started with Tableplop with a character. It's just their basic stats. You know, you don't need anything super fancy. You don't need to fill in all of your character sheet data. Especially if you're using another program like D&D Beyond that manages all of your character information, your inventory, stuff like that. Although you could, absolutely, you could edit with a little pencil here. You could go in and add, so under settings, you can add a tab and call it inventory. And then under inventory, let's see, character inventory. We can edit the inventory and add properties. So you could add a paragraph, you could add headings, title section, columns, tables, text fields, numbers, hit points, checkboxes, right? You could have a, let's see, create, you could say like, I want to edit this, I'll call it, let's see, potion of healing. I don't know. And I have it, and I use it, and it goes away. You could also, let's see, I'll delete this. If you wanted to track ammo, you could add a number here. You could say arrows, create, and you could put in a number, say I have 50 arrows. You could make a whole table and fill it with information. People have done this. There is also some very much more detailed character sheets that people have made. I actually do want to show one of them off, so we're going to go back. I'm going to go back to my campaign. I'm going to go to characters. I'm going to go to new character, and I'm actually going to import. So we have the ability to import a JSON file. So JSON is a file format, just kind of like .txt. Not all JSON is created equally. So if you have a service like D&D Beyond or other character sheet managers that are able to export JSON files for information, it doesn't guarantee that you'll be able to use that file somewhere else. So this, the community is in the process of building tools that allow you to convert between different JSON file formats so that you can bring data from one service into Tableplop. I'm going to import a, let's see, I have a character in my downloads here. D&D 5e all classes. So I'm going to import this. And this has a much more involved set of information for your character. A lot more formulas, a lot more room for detail. You have ammo. You can put combat notes, at-will actions, short rest actions, once per days, all of your information, all of this. You can go into a lot of detail on this. You have different tabs. We have actions. You have a whole combat system where you can edit the number that you crit on, for example. If you're playing a champion fighter who crits on 19 and 20 instead of just 20, you can actually fill that in. This is a really involved character sheet. So we'll go in here, and so now that we have characters, I actually want to rename this character. So I'm going to go in, I'm going to say, we need to name it. Let's do I need a name for a lizard folk. Somebody throw something out there. Let's do, I don't know. Fregor. Fregor the lizard folk. Okay. So we open a scene. We go to the scenes, we can open a scene. Here we have a grid that shows up. And essentially it's open space. Nothing exists on the scene until we add it. So you can actually just right click the map and go to new token. And we can choose a character and we can select from the characters. So we'll select Fregor and add Fregor to the scene. And we can choose whether or not they are visible to the players. And we'll just save it in the characters folder for the scene. And voila, we have a token. Token can be moved around. And at the moment, there isn't a player that is able to control it because I don't have any players in this campaign. But we can see on this tab over here, the character sheet. And so this whole thing is collapsible. We can even bring it all the way down. And we have all of our stats, we have our saving throws, we have our skills. And if we wanted to roll in the chat, we have these little arrows. So say I wanted to roll, let's do just an acrobatics check. So I can just do a left click and it will send it. I got a 10. It'll send it to the chat. And you have these numbers here that it will show you the result, and you can mouse over it and see the calculation, where it came from. If you get a natural 20, it will highlight in red. And if you want to roll with advantage or disadvantage, straight from your character sheet, you can actually right-click the arrow. So you can send with advantage or disadvantage, or you can just send it to the message box so that you can edit in case you have, for example, if you're blessed, you can add a D4. So there we go. We have animal handling. I rolled a 17 and my bless added a 3, so I got a 20 there. Let's see. Initiative. We'll get to combat in a moment. Initiative, when it is rolled, automatically adds you to an initiative tracker, and we'll get there when we start introducing managing running combat. So right now I'm going to add a map to the scene. So I'm going to right click, new token. I'm going to add an image, and I actually have a bunch of maps that I've uploaded already. But it is, if you want to upload a new map that you don't have, it's as easy as clicking add and then dragging and dropping the image onto the map. You can also skip this entire process by dragging and dropping an image from your desktop directly onto the scene, which I don't think a lot of other VTTs will do. I'm not sure. But it is amazing just to be able to drag an image onto the browser window and have it show up on the scene. So let me actually do that. Let me demonstrate that really quickly here. So D&D maps, and I've got, say we've got this road map. So I can literally just drag the road map onto the scene, and there it is. I believe you would be hard-pressed to find an easier method of getting a map onto a scene. If you have the file, you can drag it in. If the file is really, really big, it can be problematic because you'll have to scale it down, and it might lag a little bit. But you know, it's an online application. Depending on your internet speed, it may be slower especially for like 5+ megabyte images. You can edit the size of it. So right now my map here has a grid on it, and if you hold shift, it will snap to grid. So say I want those squares to be 10 feet instead, I can just double it to 34, and now my squares are 10 feet by 10 feet. If I want to kind of freeze the image into the background so that I don't accidentally move it around, I can right click and lock it. So now it's locked onto the scene and I can't interact with it anymore except for moving the whole scene around. So I have a token here. So let's do, actually, I want to see if I can make it back to the regular size. I'll say 17. There we go. And I'm going to unlock it, resnap it, and relock it. You can also do some pretty cool things where you can turn it into a tiling image, and now you have infinite road. So if you had a kind of a seamless forest image, for example, you could upload that image and it would tile and make a whole forest for the entire scene. So now I'm actually going to have to remove this. Delete, and I will bring it back in. There we go. Okay. So some of you may be familiar with the Lost Mine of Phandelver. The first encounter, here's some spoilers. The first encounter is some goblins that are kind of hiding behind a cart or a log on the road. And let me relock this here. Lock. And say that we just want to create that scene for the players to come in and enter combat. Something that I have found myself doing a lot is on the fly coming up with encounters. I often don't prep the VTT beforehand. If I do, it's really nice for myself, and I appreciate past me for doing the preparation. But I like the ability to just go forward during a session and have something ready within like 2 to 5 minutes. I'll tell my players to go get a sip of water, and I'll put together the scene in a matter of a couple of minutes, and it is not stressful at all. Whereas some other virtual tabletops, I believe, are much more involved on the number of steps it takes to do something like this that I'm about to show you. So I want to add some goblins, and I want to add a cart. I have some assets from 2 Minute Tabletop. I'm going to go to New Token. I'm going to go to Image, and I'm going to go to my cart here. So I'm going to have a furnished cart. I'm going to pick this cart and add it to the scene. So it's much too small, so I'll scale it, and I'll rotate it, and we have a cart on the scene. I could have a horse lying on the ground, but that's fine. I don't have one available at the moment. And I don't have a log that I can just throw in there at the moment, but what we'll do now is we'll add the goblins. So I'm going to go to right click, New Token, and we're going to, well actually first, if I want to import a goblin, I would have to go to New Character. But at the moment, it is not possible to import the JSON files on the scene. So you actually have to go back to characters on the main menu. You have to go back to characters on the main menu, import the character, and then you can go back to the scene and add it. So we're going to do that. We're going to go back to the campaign and go to characters, new character, import. And I'm going to find, I have the monster manual here. I'm going to type for goblin. So I have goblins here, and I'm going to import it. And there we go. We have all of the goblin stats and a token for it. This is just going to be goblin. And then I'm going to go back, and maybe we'll have a goblin boss. I know there isn't one in the first encounter of Lost Mine, so let's see. Goblin boss. Import. And again, I'll be able to share all of these monster stat blocks, all of the files with the people here at the end of the session. Okay. So now that I have my creatures, I can go back to the scene. I can rename it here. I'll say this is the road. And I can actually add an image here if I wanted to. But I'm going to open it up. And now that I'm here, I can add a token, go to character, click on Goblin, and Goblin Boss. And I'm going to mark them as not visible. So they are going to show up on the scene and be hidden to the players, but I can see them. And I'm going to put them behind the cart here, waiting in ambush. At the moment, there is not an ability to multi-select tokens and move them as a group. I know some VTTs can do that, and I think that's on the roadmap for Tableplop. But you have to move them individually at the moment, which is not so much of a hindrance in my experience. I've been using it for 1.5 years. Unless you were running a giant battle with like 50 enemies. If you wanted to have multiple goblins, you can just right-click, duplicate. And it will assign letters to them. So this one has Q and this one has I. It doesn't do A, B, C, D because the players would know exactly how many there were if you did that. So if they saw Goblin D, they would know, oh, there are 4 goblins. So it assigns random alphabet letters to them, and you can also change what the letter is or what shows up on the screen. So you'll see this this label on the scene. So I'm gonna show it. So now it pops up in bold. So in the name of the character, anything in parentheses will show up as a label on the scene. So if I call this Boblin, this is now Boblin the Goblin. Just by putting it in parentheses in the name of the token. And it is still unique from this goblin. And so you can show and say we want to go do some combat. All right. Before I go ahead and launch into the combat system, feel free to launch any of your, or throw any of your questions into the special events channel, which is right above this voice channel in Discord. If there's anything that you wanted to see about characters, or about starting a campaign, or setting up a scene. I see Nice Tree is typing. We'll give him a moment to see what we got. It does not interact with Beyond 20 at all. Beyond 20 is designed for Roll20, I believe. It doesn't have any connection with D&D Beyond at all. It is a VTT that is being developed by one person. I personally am working on a tool. I personally am working on a Python script that will be able to grab your character's data from D&D Beyond and export it as a character sheet for this VTT. That's going to be released sometime soon. I did a lot of programming on it this week, actually. There's a question in the chat. Have you used other systems other than 5e? In Tableplop, no, I have not. There are people who have, that are in the community in the Discord for Tableplop, that you can chat with about other systems. The VTT is kind of designed around 5th edition's experience, rolling with advantage and stuff like that built into the system. But it can lend itself to anything that you would want a grid and some tokens to move around. Could be sci-fi, could be, you know, could be Western, could be anything. Yeah. Cool. So let's go ahead and go into combat here. So I will say roll initiative to my players, and my players, so imagine my players here, they will click on the initiative button and send it. So it says 13 for initiative, and I will roll initiative for the goblin. So right click, add to initiative, allows me to add it manually, or I can just go into its character sheet and roll its initiative. And it will be hidden. Oh, it rolled a nat 20 for initiative. Amazing. Roll this one's initiative and roll the boss's initiative. There we go. So all of those initiatives are hidden. The formula that I built into the character sheets causes that to happen. When you use !H in any formula for any roll, when it goes into the chat, the players won't be able to see it. So now, on the bottom right of the window, there are 3 tabs, right? This one is your file manager. You also have the initiative tracker and the chat. So now I have my initiative. I can start initiative tracking, and it will show me at the top of my screen a little label saying whose turn it is. And it'll say which round we are on as well. So we have round 1, and say that Boblin wants to attack Fregor, the lizard folk over here. So first, we might want to measure range, or figure out what weapon they want to use. I actually have in my list of actions here that the goblin has a short bow. So it says it has a range of 80 feet. We know that this is easily within 80 feet because those squares are 5 feet each, but we can make sure. There's a ruler down here. We can measure distance. So I can measure distance like this. So we have a 45-foot distance here. You can also change how it measures. You can snap to grid or have a free measurement. So it's any angle. So you get 40, 45 and a half, 46 feet to the character. You can also you can change how the diagonals work. I know some people use a different version of diagonals where diagonals are 7 feet, or they're 5, then 10, then 5 feet, or that there's no cost for a diagonal. I suppose I should also show you really quickly Fog of War. If I edit the fog here and I go to reveal, it will hide everything by default. And I can just reveal a shape. I'll just do a bunch of clicking here, and now we have a Fog of War. All right. Okay, so the goblin wants to attack Fregor, and we're going to roll the short bow into the chat, and it will send it, and I can see it. The players won't be able to see this because it's a hidden message. So it'll say 17 to hit and 3 piercing damage. So now the player would check their AC. So we have an AC of 16, so 17 does hit, and they will take 3 piercing damage. And so you can put 3 in here and click remove. You can also just edit your HP manually, but I find that people in the heat of the moment kind of forget about math sometimes. And so just putting the number in and clicking remove usually is better for them. Okay, and then we have the next initiative. So you can use these arrows here to go back and forth on initiative. So we have Goblin Q. Is going to do the same thing. So we have short bow, roll, 14 misses, and then we go to the next Goblin Boss. Goblin Boss has a javelin. And we'll roll the javelin. We got a 20 to hit for 2 piercing damage. Right, so you can see how combat could be pretty quick. Click on a token. Click on the actions. You'll see it's available actions. If you just want it to send to chat, you can with the arrow. If you want with advantage, you can right click, send with advantage or disadvantage. If you need them to roll saves of any kind, they're in the first tab down below. So we have saving throws, we have skills. So I believe they can hide as a bonus action, so you might want to have them go behind the cart and roll stealth. So there we get a 12, and we get a stealth check here as well. Stealth is dexterity, of course. There, not 20. 26 for stealth. So cool. We have one that is hidden, and one that rolled a 12 on stealth, and the goblin boss did another 2 piercing damage to Fregor. Fregor's not looking too good. Okay. Say that we wanted to cast a spell that had a some kind of effect, some lasting effect, a condition. You can manage conditions on characters by right-clicking and managing their conditions. And it gives you the options of a whole bunch of these default 5th edition ones that exist. There's also a bunch of just symbols that can be whatever you want them to be, and you can name them. So let's say that one of them was, we'll say the ranger cast Hail of Thorns on something, or Entangle, and it failed to save. Now it is restrained. It has a symbol of shackles on it. I'm a little bit fancy, and I actually I have some spell templates, and so I have the Entangle spell here that I can use and have that show up on the scene and have it affect everything in that area. So they might want to cast Entangle like that and restrain them. So we have the conditions that you can manage. At the moment, there isn't a way to make your own conditions and save them permanently. If you wanted to just add, like there isn't a cursed effect. So if you wanted to add cursed, you could click new condition, and then you'd pick a symbol for it. And so we could say, I don't know, just do like a biohazard or like a dagger. So you pick a symbol, you give it a name, and now it shows up on the scene. The developer is working on making it so that you can save conditions permanently onto your campaign. I believe that's in the roadmap. Something I'm looking forward to as my players level up and get more abilities that can allow them to sit there and apply all kinds of debuffs and buffs to things on the scene. Okay. Something that I know a lot of people like to use on VTTs is a drawing tool. Sometimes you just need to draw something. Maybe there's a puddle of water. Maybe there's some fire that appears. Well, there's a drawing tool down on the bottom. We can choose colors. We can do free draw. We can do lines, circles, or a box. We can erase things. So we're going to do free draw, and we're going to choose a color here. We'll just say that there's fire for some reason. We can do a fill of orange as well. And we'll just kind of draw a fire blob. Maybe another one. So now we have some fire. You can also just do boxes. So if you don't want any fill, you can go ahead and add boxes. So say we have a 10 foot by 10 foot effect of some kind. You can just draw that in there. And then you can deselect. So it is a token. It's an image you can move around. You can hide it. You can lock it. You can give control of it to a player. For example, if a player has a spiritual weapon or something that they summon, you can just make a drawing and draw the thing for them. I'll just draw a sword of some kind, and then we can actually make it public, and then people can move it around as a token, as a statless token. Okay, I can delete this. Okay. Cool. This has all been very quick. I'm used to using this tool, but I hope that it is presented in such a way that it seems simple enough that you could probably figure out how to use it in a few minutes. Right, you have your add a drawing. You choose the thing that you want to draw with. So I click on free draw, and then you just start drawing on the scene. You have to be really careful about giving your players the ability to do this, though. You will get all kinds of things drawn. Okay. That is Introduction to Combat. We have actions on our character sheets. We have some built-in actions on here. So we have spell attacks, great axes, short swords, stuff like that. You can actually edit these. The programming for the actions is not super complicated. There are the keywords in here that are built in for using your stats on your character sheet. So prof will add your proficiency, stir will add your strength. You can also just type the word strength. There's a little bit more complex stuff in here on the short sword where it is a finesse weapon, or it's a light weapon, I forget which one it is, that allows you to choose your dexterity or strength when you attack. And so we have the little bit of a calculation here that is a function that can figure out your maximum between strength and dex and apply that to the roll. And so we'll send this to the chat and we get our information. All right. Let's see, what was the next thing I wanted to cover here? Yes. So say you have multiple scenes and you wanted your characters to say, go from one map to another map all at once, and you wanted to bring everybody into another scene all at once. So if we go to other scenes here, we can go to new scene, and you'll see, right now there's nothing there, but you'll see all of your players kind of listed as here on the road scene. And if you want to move them to another scene, you can actually go move everyone to scene. On it's a little meatball menu. And moving everyone to this scene will load the scene for everybody. And they will by default see the camera space on their screen, which you can also edit. You can change the viewport size. So if you have a really, really big map, you can increase the viewport size so they can see more of the scene when they load in on their page. You can also snap players to the view that you have on your screen, forcing them to see what you see. Let's see. We can also change the color of the grid. Say you wanted a lighter grid. I wonder if there's oh yeah, you can do hex grids. If you wanted to do a world map that is hex grid based. Or if you wanted to do, we have the different kinds of hex grids, the horizontal and vertical hexes. I think if I add my character to the scene, I wonder if they still snap. Not quite the same. Yeah, snapping, holding shift on hexes is kind of difficult to program, so I don't think he's got it in there yet. I can change the size. Let's see, grid back to square. Nomad. Hi, is there a way to bring the left side of the screen in? Oh. Yes. Here, right click. See, display capture. Transform fit to screen. There we go. Good. Okay. Yeah, my Twitch stream was not fitted to screen properly. There we go. Okay. And again, we can add images. I have maps. I can upload. Say I have this Winter Ruins map, and I'll just pop that in there, and I'll just lock it, and now I have a map, and I can add tokens, add characters, and I can add a bunch of goblins if I want to, and I can mark them as not visible, create, and then I can just duplicate them all around if I want to. And within, what is that, not even a minute, I have enemies on the scene, I have my player on the scene, and I can start combat. Which is really nice and takes a lot less time than some of the other VTTs that I've used. I'm actually gonna wrap up now. I am free to answer questions for another about 6 or 7 minutes. This is definitely a tool that I think people should be more aware of, that is pretty easy to use, easy for players to use, really quick to get going, moving tokens around, rolling ability checks, and getting to play without being bogged down by the interface.
I had a quick question, Ron.
Sure.
When before you migrate or move everyone from map to map, like can you leave them on the previous map?
Yeah.
And then like make some changes, edits, and stuff like that, and then bring
yes.
over?
Yeah. So you click on the road, and it will move you, but not the other players.
Okay. So like as the DM, like we could be on this screen, they're still on the other one, and then once we're ready for them, we can
right.
click and send them over.
You can also determine which scenes are visible to the players. So you can make, so for example, this road here is visible to the other players, and they can actually switch themselves to the scenes because they'll be able to see all of the scenes that are visible. Okay. But you have this all scenes view.
Okay.
Where you can have hidden scenes and prepare those in advance.
Yeah. Okay.
And then you can just move everybody. So moving everyone to scene only works if you are in the scene, in the same scene as the players. So like if you are in this wintry ruins scene and you want to move people to it, but they're all in another scene, being here and they're all in the road and clicking move everyone to scene doesn't always work quite yet. That's a bug that is being worked on. There's a few other small things where if you import a character for the first time, you may have to edit their token size. So for example, if I load in a Behir, and then I go to my road and I right click new token, character, this thing, add, create. It doesn't have a size for the token yet, and so it'll just be massive on the scene, so you'll have to hold shift and snap to grid. Or you can actually edit the size of the token on the appearances section, I believe. Oh, maybe not. Yeah. So the size of the token will be consistent once you change it once. So it'll never load in huge again. It'll just stay the size that you made it. It's a huge, so it's this big. And the players, so if the players are in the scene and you go back to the main menu to import another character, the players may have to refresh the page in order to see the token on the scene if you bring it into the scene, which is a very minimal interruption.
And the fog of war that you've got on,
Yeah.
that's the dark stuff, right?
Yeah.
Is it just fog of war right now, or do they have any
I like dynamic lighting.
Astral? Yeah, like I know Astral has that. I think both of them have it.
So Tableplop does not have dynamic lighting yet. There's no like vision cones or vision distance calculated yet from tokens. There also isn't currently the ability to say have an aura around your character that moves with your character.
Okay.
I know some other VTTs can do that. I think that's also on the roadmap and is a highly requested feature, being able to have like a big circle around you.
Mm-hmm.
The whole condition system and the idea of having auras and area of effects that kind of move with things, those are kind of extra features that at the moment you can kind of manually do without too much hassle. They're just nice to haves.
Mm-hmm.
The core of the experience of playing on a VTT, I believe, is satisfied by Tableplop. Just having tokens you can move around, having actions you can send to chat, and the ease of setting something up and getting going, especially with players who might be hesitant to use a tool kind of like this.
Yeah, it seems really polished.
Mm-hmm.
Especially for like one person working on it.
Oh yeah.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's Tableplop. Hope all of you have got some ideas, and I will share my monster database if people want it. I can at least link the SRD stuff. Let's see, I'll go find that. There's the templates. So copy. Oh. I wonder. I have a zip. Oh, actually, I can just throw the zip in the chat. I'm going to stop my recording and end my stream at the moment.